a lot of people are calling for a no-fly zone over Ukraine right now, and they don't even know what they're calling for. Like, here's a Republican representative from Florida, eh? And what does she say?
And do you support a no-fly zone in Ukraine?
I support everything that has to do with punishing Vladimir Putin and helping the Ukrainians.
Wouldn't that mean direct conventional warfare with Russia?
I don't know what it will mean, but you know, freedom is not free.
So you don't know what a no-fly zone will mean. If you have to shoot down Russian planes, I mean.
Of course.
Oh my God.
Conventional war with Russia.
Listen, thank you.
She doesn't know. She doesn't know what a no-fly zone it means, but she's for it. You want to hear that again? Because I do. This is amazing.
And do you support a no-fly zone in Ukraine?
I support everything that has to do with punishing Vladimir Putin and helping the Ukrainians.
Wouldn't that mean direct conventional warfare with Russia?
I don't know what it will mean, but you know.
I don't know what it will mean. I'm just saying it, man. Come on, a little bit of chicken fried. Freedom isn't free. I'm just saying Chili's, eating good in the neighborhood. McDonald's, I'm loving it. I'm just saying things. And who
Freedom isn't free. It takes World War III.
Yeah.
That's the rhyme.
Freedom isn't free. It takes World War III. Florida, that's Representative Maria Salazar. And I got that from Anya Parampel's tweet. That's who that is. She supports a no-fly zone. And doesn't know what it would mean, though, and then says freedom isn't free. So why are people like her saying things like that? Well, Politico playbook, exclusive limited no-fly zone gains steam among foreign policy elite. This was written by Rachel Beatty, Ryan Lizza, and Eugene Daniels. This story is like 4 paragraphs long. It took 4 fucking people to write it. It's amazing. Or how many people did it take? 3? 1, 2, 3. But what are they referring to is but I like when they say a limited no-fly zone. We're gonna have a limited World War III. It'd be limited to just, annihilating 1 billion people. That's limited. There'll still be 3 billion people left over, right? So there was a letter by all these people who you don't know. They released a letter saying we should have a no-fly zone, and they're all former diplomats who are on the take. And here's what it says. Open letter calling for a limited no-fly zone. We, the undersigned, urge the Biden administration, together with NATO allies, to impose a limited no-flying zone over Ukraine, starting with protection for humanitarian corridors that were agreed upon in talks between Russia and Ukrainian officials on Thursday. NATO leaders should convey to Russian officials that they do not seek direct confrontation with Russian forces, but they must also make clear that they will not countenance, Kurt. There'll be no countenancing Russian attacks on civilian areas. The international community has responded. So it's all about humanitarians. They just care about the people. That's what this is about. I don't know where their letter is on Afghanistan, Syria, Somalia, Yemen, Libya, Iraq. I bet there was no letter, but they've got one for Ukraine, and I'm sure it has nothing to do with the military-industrial complex or paychecks. Here's what they say down here. The international community has responded swiftly through an unprecedented array of sanctions and significant increase in lethal military assistance to help Ukraine defend itself. Why didn't you guys do that with Iraq? Why didn't you guys? Why didn't you guys lethal military assistance to Iraq or Libya or Syria or Afghanistan?
Or how about tone down the NATO stuff to save the people of Ukraine?
Yeah.
What about that?
How about that?
You don't have to have a war over it.
Isn't that funny? Just Ukraine. The international community, there's sanctions now. Where was the sanctions? Why didn't we get sanctioned when we invaded Iraq illegally? Why didn't we get sanctioned when we occupied Afghanistan for 20 years? Why aren't we being sanctioned now when we're occupying Syria? 1/3 of Syria, we're occupying it. Which part do you think? The oil fields. Where's our sanctions when we turned Libya into a failed state, murdered all those people, overthrew their government? Where's our sanctions? We just don't have sanctions for Ukraine. The world's coming together over Ukraine. This is from Politico, and this is what they said about the limited no-fly zone. Ready? This is what they said. This strikes us as a sincere attempt to answer the nagging question that many in the West have about wanting to do something about the humanitarian catastrophe Putin has unleashed without escalating it into a potential nuclear conflict. So they're saying this is a good idea. The guys at the Political, those 3 people it took to write this fucking article, 3 people.
That's probably to come up with that stupid paragraph.
Yes.
How do we say this strikes us? A sincere intent. Great. Write that down.
I mean, a media organization that's pro-war and corporate. Wow. I'm shocked. I'm shocked there's gambling happening here. The proposal described here is strictly about protecting civilians. So what they're pretending to not know, but of course they know, but they're just writing straight up propaganda on purpose, is that by protecting civilians, that means shooting down Russian planes and literally starting World War III. That's how you protect people? Start a war with a nuclear country? Really? That's how you protect civilians.
That's amazing.
Chris Cillizza. Jesus Christ. So here's a guy who wouldn't sign on to that letter because apparently they didn't pay him enough or whatever. Or maybe who knows why. But this guy's always the worst. And watch what he says on MSNBC.
I think a no-fly zone is the wrong move. I support the President of the United States on that. Let's just get rid of this euphemism, no-fly zone. Let's call it for what it is. It's war. If we try to...
So when you say I'm for a no-fly zone, you're saying I'm for going to war because that's what it means. And that's what he just said. So even a guy like this who's normally a war hawk and a crazy person is not lying. And he's telling you the truth about it. And he wouldn't sign on to that letter. And here he is telling you the truth on MSNBC. So I'm guessing he won't be asked back on for the rest of the war.
Implement a no-fly zone. That means that an American pilot has to shoot down a Russian pilot. And if we do that, that's a declaration of war. And Vladimir Putin has been very clear that that's the way he sees it. And if we're prepared to do that, if the American people want to go to war with Russia, I think it would be a mistake. But if we're prepared to do it, then we should have a vote in the U.S. Congress because the Congress is supposed to declare war. That's what we need to do first. We should stop calling it a no-fly zone, and we should start calling it declaration against Russia to go to war. And I just don't think that's the right thing to do right now. Everything short of that, I support 100%. Every weapon system on the planet that we can send to them, but I do not.
So I told you he was a maniac. So there he reveals his maniac. Oh, we should do everything we can to ramp this up, except actually shoot someone. We should give it to other people and tell them to attack Russia. We should fund it. We should give them every weapon possible to escalate this war that will only end in slaughter of the Ukrainian people. So he keeps going.
I think it's smart to send American soldiers to fight Putin soldiers.
What about this idea of a limited no-fly zone, one that protects humanitarian routes?
Again, those are my friends that put that letter out. I chose not to sign that letter. I'll tell you very honestly. I've signed other ones with them. I chose not to do this now. If you could get a guarantee blessed by the United Nations with Russia and Ukraine all together, that we all recognize those corridors as being free and safe, then we should consider it. But we haven't done that yet. And so I just think I don't think we should go to war with Russia right now. Everything else, yes, I'm not prepared to go there to that level along with my colleagues.
So just to let you know what's going on with NATO and Russia and what's really behind this, this was NATO, and they said we weren't going to expand. Germany can reunify. We're not going to expand. That was NATO in red. Here's NATO now. So all those countries we've turned into NATO countries. Wow, that's a lot of countries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's a lot of countries. Look at that. And we're trying to turn Ukraine. This is Ukraine right here. We're trying. So all these now are freaking NATO. We're trying to turn this one into NATO. And people want to do a no-fly zone now because they don't know what they're talking about, and they propaganda. And the military-industrial complex doesn't care about killing people. That's what they do for a living.
Even if you tell them what it is, they don't. They go, okay, that's shooting at the planes. Okay, but what about a limited no-fly zone? Like, that's really disheartening to watch.
And you have crazy people like that representative from Florida saying she's for a no-fly zone. She doesn't even know what it means.
Freedom isn't free.
Freedom isn't free.
Jack Daniel's Grill.
Hey, we got more dates for our 2022 stand-up tour. We're going everywhere. We're going to Dallas, Houston, Florida. We're going to Omaha, Des Moines, Pittsburgh, Columbus, Ohio, and Los Angeles. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all the tickets for all our shows.